Bryan Gaiser is an investment advisor representative. Investment advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisors Incorporated, a North Carolina registered investment advisory firm. Are you retired or soon to be retired? Do you want to make sure your retirement outgrows your expenses throughout all of your retirement years? Do you have questions about health and fitness, professional money management, Social Security benefits, passing your assets to your loved ones without giving up control of your estate? Welcome to Better Living with Bryan Gaiser, where we show you how to thrive, not just survive during the best years of your life. And now, here's the host of Better Living, Bryan Gaiser.
Good morning, listeners. Good morning, Triad. My name's Bryan Gaiser, as you know, and I have the show Better Living. And the reason I made those changes at the beginning of this year and to Better Living from just a financial show, it's more about finances, or it's more than about finances when it comes to your life and your retirement. But more importantly, I've got a special guest this morning. So we're going to kind of move off the financial path and we're going to move over to the political path a little bit this morning. I have Mr. Kenn Kopf with me. He's running for the 6th District, U.S. Congress. And we're going to I want you to get to know this gentleman. I looked him up on the internet, happened through some conversations with friends, looked him up on the internet and read his resume. And I said, I believe that's exactly what we need in the 6th District. You know, Howard Coble is stepping down. And I said, that's exactly what we need. That's somebody that really understands what we need. And just reading his resume, and that's at kennkopf4congress.com. I want you to write that down right now, and I want you to go to that website today and read about this guy. We have 9 candidates, and I really, really, really like this guy, and I want you to get to know him. And he's here with me in the studio today. And without further ado, welcome, Kenn. How are you this morning?
Just fine. Good morning, Bryan. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk to you.
Good deal. Good deal. Kenn, you know, a lot of folks, the big thing is when you're running for Congress and you've got an extensive background in politics, if you will, but in the background, just that. And it's people, how do we get out and how do we get out your message so people get to know you? And I know one way is we got to drive them to your website so they can read about you and your history, because your history, your background is really amazing, and especially when you compare it to the other 8 candidates. And I'm not saying we have bad candidates, but I'm just saying you've got some things in there that I think can really make a difference in Washington. And Washington is, you know, everybody, I mean, the disappointment in Washington today is huge. We all know that. And that nothing, what can one person get done? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay. Thank you, Bryan. I appreciate that opportunity. I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, small little town. And I grew up really very poor. There were times when I didn't even know whether I was going to have food on the table, and I usually had to have my brother's hand-me-down clothes. But the good part about all that was I was my parents instilled in me some Christian and conservative beliefs and principles that they always told me that if I want to do something, I can do it. All I have to do is work hard and persevere, and it'll happen. And short answer is I achieved my American dream. And I have seen over at least the last 5 years, a decline in the American dream in the United States. And I wanted to utilize my talents and my background experience to put America on the right path again, to save that American dream, not only for my children, but for everybody's children and future generations. As Ronald Reagan said, I don't want to be the generation that presides over the demise of the American dream. And I see us going in the wrong direction. A little bit about my background. When right out of high school, I enlisted in the Air Force, and I became a Russian linguist. And I worked for 4 years with the intelligence community of the United States, keeping tabs on the Russians. So I clearly understand the classified world that the United States works in, which would help me in Congress, especially with issues like Benghazi and the Russians invasion of Crimea and surrounding of the Ukraine.
Now, real quick, when you say that, a lot of people don't realize the training that goes into that. You guys go through some serious mind games, for lack of a better word.
Absolutely.
What are some of the trainings they do?
Absolutely. Just an example, my Russian training, we were immersed in Russia, not only the language, but the geopolitical and history aspects of Russia. We would be trained for 8 to 10 hours a day, 6 days a week for 9 months intensively. Almost from day one, we were not allowed to speak English. We had to speak only Russian. It got to the point at the end of the training where we could explain in Russian a nuclear reaction. So it was very difficult. And then from that point on, I was stationed in Europe, and I conducted my missions everywhere around Europe and the Mediterranean. That's about all I can say at this point.
Yes, I totally understand. Yeah. But basically, it's intense.
It's very intense, and I had to go through additional training, such as interrogation resistance training.
Wow. Where
I was actually waterboarded and subjected to other psychological techniques. And that's what I tell everybody. If they couldn't break me by waterboarding me and doing these other techniques, there's no one in Washington, D.C. that's going to make me compromise my conservative principles. It's as simple as that.
Bingo. And I think that's the point I want you to get at. I think that is so huge. I mean, we've got 9 candidates running, but from a background, just that one point, just what we just talked about right there, just from that is such a huge advantage when you get up to Washington. We've got to get somebody up there. You know, it's like in football. They want a great quarterback, and it can be a nice guy. All those things are great. But if you don't have that it factor, and I think it takes training of that nature to have that it factor to deal with what Congress, what the whole political scene has become today. I really think that that is so critical because you're under intense training and you're able to still think logically. You're able to still move forward and make good decisions. And I think that's just huge for someone. I just think we're blessed to have a candidate with those kind of credentials.
I thank you, and I agree. If you're going to go to Washington, you're going to be subjected to all types of extreme pressure, not only from special interests, but from the actual Republican Party itself to go along with whatever the leadership wants to do. I've been a fighter all my life. I've stood up, and we can get into some other credentials, but please. I mean, I've stood up against odds in the military, as an attorney, as a judge, in business. I've been a fighter. I know how to persuade people to come over to my side. And I think this training and background I have would help me stand up for the principles and do the right thing that needs to be done. As everyone understands, I think that right now we have a Congress that doesn't have the courage to do the right thing. We have a president that's hijacking our Constitution. We have a Congress that won't do anything to stop him. And we have voters that have absolutely no respect or confidence in Congress anymore. What we need up there is not only just leadership, and by the way, leadership comes from experience, not just saying I'm a leader. But we need leadership, and we need someone with the courage and the backbone to stand up for the right thing, like Ted Cruz, like Trey Gowdy. Someone who has not only the experience and training, but also the ability to stand up for what's right.
And then they got to deal with the onslaught from television after that. Television, absolutely. Making Ted Cruz sound like a crazy man.
Absolutely.
Making these guys sound like, because they're standing up for the Constitution, they make them sound like they're crazy. And television has, they understand the art of advertisement.
Yes.
And people don't realize a lot of news is advertisement. Who's paying the big bucks? They're going to lean that way. It's just the way it is. So and people don't understand that. And how do you deal with something like that if you come out as strong as a Ted Cruz? I mean, I think it's going to take a person with a background and a training that you have. I mean, because you're taught to deal with heavy psychological damage and still make correct decisions.
Absolutely.
That's huge.
I agree. And that takes you into another issue, actually. Why do people succumb to the pressure when they're in Washington or to special interest? And my answer to that is is because it's either political expediency or because they want to protect their job. And that gets into term limits.
Because it is tough to live on $186,000 a year. We know that. That's
what people seem to think. Yes.
And then that pension, whew,
right.
Tell you, worked hard.
But that's right. But one of the other factors is, like I said, term limits. I have already been on record to say that I will self-limit. I will term limit myself to 4 terms.
Which is a total of 8 years.
It was a total of 8 years.
And you need 8 years to get some things done. Because things don't move fast. You couldn't get it done in 2 years. But 8 years is very reasonable. And then you're done.
Then I'm done.
And no matter what.
No matter what.
And if everyone, and last night you were at a forum, or night before last.
Yes.
You were at a forum. And that question was asked, will anyone in here, do term limits, or who will self-impose a term on themselves, a term limit, if you will? How many people out of 9 candidates said they would?
Out of the question wasn't put directly, how many will term limit themselves, but the answer to the question brought up the issue of term limits. And out of the 8 candidates that were there, only 2 of us verbally said that we will term limit ourselves.
Which is huge. And I've always said, if you really want me to believe deeply in a politician, hook them to a lie detector and let them give their speech and see how that comes out. Nancy Pelosi and those guys threw things at me, but anyways, just kidding. But the point is, that's almost like hooking yourself to a lie detector test, saying, hey, look, give me 8 years. This is what I'm going to do. And as things change, I'm going to communicate that, because I think that's the big thing. How do you plan to communicate differently? How do we, it's just, here's election time, here's Kenn Kopf, he wins. Do we hear from you again over those 2 years, other than just fundraisers or you understand what I'm saying? Where can we measure progress as we go along?
You measure progress of a candidate or a congressman by what they're actually doing, not only for the district of North Carolina, but what they're doing for the country. If you have a congressman who's just going to sit there and vote present, like Obama always did, or someone who is just there for the status of being a congressman, you will know what they're passing, what they're supporting, and what they're proposing in legislation. There are 100 different issues which affect this 6th district, and the congressman is sent there to help promote, whether it be jobs or taxes or the environment or whatever. They need to be going there and actually supporting legislation. And if they're supporting the legislation, you will know that either through their newsletter or through for the press. I firmly believe that the press is there for a reason, and you need to use the press to get your message out. If you're not using it, then how do the people know, one, what you're doing, or that you're doing any good at all?
Exactly. Well, look, we're going to go to break right now. Folks, we'll be back in a little bit. We're with Kenn Kopf, and appreciate you tuning in today.
Kenn Kopf for Congress. Solutions, not slogans.
Slogans. Everyone uses them, but leadership ability and experience is what you're searching for, not fancy words. I've had a lifetime of experience in business and service to America, and I'll work hard for you in Congress. That's not a slogan, that's a promise. I'm Kenn Kopf, your candidate for Congress.
Vote Kenn Kopf for Congress.
I'm Kenn Kopf, and I approve this message because we need solutions.
Paid for by the Committee to Elect Kenn Kopf.
Welcome back to Better Living. I'm here with Kenn Kopf. He's running for U.S. Congress, 6th District, Howard Coble's seat that he is stepping down from. Going to do a little retirement. Wish Howard the best on that. That being said, Ken and I, today's show is all about getting to know Kenn Kopf. Okay? And guys, I'm telling you, KENN-KOPF. Write that down. And also go to his website, KENN. He spells his name with 2 N's. KOPF for the number 4, Congress.com. Or you can just Google him and it'll pop up on the first page too, KENN-KOPF. But folks, go there, read his resume, read about him. He's going to have a special guest in next week. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Here at Sedgefield Country Club, having a dinner, a fundraiser. And you're going to like this. You're going to love this. So I recommend highly. Go to his website, Kenn Kopf, KENNKOPF, forcongress.com. Ken, tell us some more about you. Let's get these listeners, let's really get them to know you.
All right. As I said, I had a prior military experience. I was actually in the military twice. The first time, I said, as a Russian linguist. Second time, after law school, I went in as an Air Force Judge Advocate General. It was when I was a JAG with the Air Force, I helped prosecute cases, everything from government fraud to attempted espionage. I was a special assistant U.S. attorney during that time. I was a administrative law judge, and I've been a mediator. I helped negotiate labor union contracts. So I have the legal experience, and later on in my career, I was a pro tem Superior Court judge. So I have the ability to not only mediate but also analyze on a legal basis.
Wow!
In addition,
so you've been in government since you were 18 at some level.
Yes.
And then private sector as well.
Yes, private sector. I spent 27 years as a senior management with large international corporations. Corporations as large as 165,000 employees. And part of my job was to help create and keep thousands of jobs over those 27 years. So I know how to create jobs. Because
you've done it.
I've done it.
There's a difference between saying I got a theory and I've done it. And we're talking about on a grand scale.
Yes, absolutely. Every candidate wants to create jobs. I mean, that's their main task right now in 6th District and in North Carolina. We need to create jobs. That's what's going to move our economy forward and not backwards. But I actually have the experience in creating jobs. I know how to do that. And I have, if you go to my website, I have plans on how to create those jobs. We can get them in another point. But it's imperative that the next congressman not only say these things they want to do, but they should have experience in doing them, because once you get up there in Congress, you're going to have to be able to demonstrate what you can do, not just talk about it. And if you're going to just rely on another congressman's bills and support them, that's not going to maybe get it done.
Right. Just because you can bake a pie doesn't mean you can run a bakery.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what I think your experience is. Hey, I not only can bake this pie, I can run the bakery. Right. I can hire the people. I can deal with the manager. No, it's massive multitasking. That's been the most difficult transition for me. Investment advisor. Hey, I'm my own firm. Wow, what an experience. Just that little step for me was huge. I can't imagine going from great ideas. Maybe I've been a district attorney. Maybe I've been a pastor. Maybe I've been whatever my background is. Maybe I created a product and, built a company. All those things are great. Exactly. But no one has the whole collection of experience that you do. And especially, we're talking U.S. Congress. We're not talking just the state of North Carolina. We're talking U.S. Congress. We're talking global here. Mm-hmm. Globally, no one fits the bill like you fit the bill out of those 9 candidates. There's some good people out there, and I'm not knocking them. And they got their hearts in the right place. But truly, the experience, when you read your resume and the things we're talking about today, no one compares to your resume. Right. And who would you hire? That's the question you ask. It's not just who would you vote because it makes you feel good, but if it was your company, your company's the United States of America, who would you hire? Right. And if you read the resume, only on resume, forget names, I don't know how you skip your resume.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And it's, when I was with these corporations, I wasn't just sitting around. I was actually on the boards of directors of several of these corporations, both international and U.S. I was actually the general manager of 2 international subsidiaries. So I know not only how to run these corporations, but I also know how to create the jobs and stay within the budget. I've been with companies with budgets as large as billions of dollars, not just local companies or the city of Greensboro with maybe millions of dollars. I'm talking about billions of dollars. And I know how to run that company and stay within that budget. It may not be taxpayers' money that I was dealing with, but it was investors' money, which are taxpayers.
And the government can print money.
Yes.
Your corporations could not print money.
Absolutely.
Which is a huge difference. So you did it without the background of the printing press.
Yes.
And the printing press has really kept us going for the last
Yes.
5 years. And I don't know if people really understand the magnitude of that. I do from an investment advisor standpoint, but I don't know that people really understand. Wall Street loves this printing press. Remember, it was for Main Street?
Yes.
And so middle class over the last 5 years, their value's gone up about 0.4%. And then the super, super, super wealthy, not $250 a year, super, super wealthy has gone up 31%, their value. So where was that Main Street, Wall Street? You know, you've ran corporations where either you get it right or you're out. Or somebody's going to engulf you.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, dog eat dog world. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what you're going up against up there at the U.S. Congress. Mm-hmm. Carry on. I mean, that's just incredible.
Yeah, when you're with a corporation, you like you said, you can't print money. You can't go out and just get more investors to do that. Of course, you can get bank loans, they're saying, but that's a debt. It's just like the U.S. government. You tend not to want to do that in a corporation. So, you know, it's a tough situation in a corporation to stay within the budget and be successful, because if you don't, now you're affecting the lives of employees who you're going to have to lay off, which we try not to do. Additionally, one of the other issues that has not yet come up in the race, which will come up in the general election,
what's that?
And that is the women's issues. That's an issue that the Democrats and the liberals try to throw up, that the Republicans have a war on women, et cetera. I mean, I have experience with that. I mean, even in the corporations, we've started programs where we mentor and promote women to senior executive positions. When you're in a corporation, not only are you required to buy EEOC and other rules, but corporations are doing that now more and more. I mean, just some statistics. The women are gaining in board seats in corporations and senior executive positions. As an example, there are 9.1 million women-owned jobs in corporations in the United States now, which is up significantly. I say due to the Republicans' attitudes. There are more jobs created by women-owned businesses lately than all the Fortune 500 companies put together.
That's incredible.
Which is amazing. And so this is an issue that the Republicans cannot ignore, and like I said, will become an issue in the general election. I have experience with that. And just generally speaking, you know,
with driving it.
With driving, exactly. And it doesn't, I keep telling people, sending someone to Congress is probably even more important that you look at who you're sending there than for hiring a position with a company. As an example, if you have a medical problem and you go to a doctor, are you going to look for someone who just says, "Oh, I can cure anything"? Or are you looking for someone who has the experience in your disease and has a background and training to cure your problem?
You want to be comfortable with the diagnosis. If you're not comfortable with the diagnosis, you're not going to be comfortable with the prescription, is what we're saying,
right,
or what they prescribe.
Yeah.
And we've got just a few minutes, so I want to talk about your friend real quick coming up next week. April the 12th, Sedgefield Country Club.
Yes.
Go online, Kenn Kopf, KENNKOPF, forcongress.com. Go on there. You can purchase tickets. It is a fundraiser for you. Who's coming to visit?
My special guest speaker for this is Mr. Frank Abagnale Jr. He is the subject of the movie Catch Me If You Can.
Leonardo DiCaprio,
Tom Hanks, produced by Steven Spielberg. Frank is my best friend in the whole world.
So you've known him for years.
For years. He is not only a great guy, but he is the FBI in the United States leading expert on bank and credit fraud. He trains the FBI agents in bank fraud, and he's been doing that for 35 years, ever since, as you saw in the movie, they let him out of jail to work for the FBI.
Guys, if you want, let me just interrupt just because of time. 1-800-570-2021 if you want to go to that. I will pass the information on to Ken. But Frank, go ahead, continue with him. I just want to give, Frank's information. I mean, I wanted to give out that real quick before we run out of time, but tell us a little more. And he's going to be, and that's Saturday, April the 12th at what time?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Okay. Yes. But go ahead.
Okay. Frank is a very uplifting speech. The speech he usually gives to the general public is one on family values, credibility, honesty, and just good, clean living, which he has dedicated his life to ever since he realized he made mistakes back when he was 16 years old.
Yeah, 16 years old. What an incredible story. Guys, you want to meet this guy, come out. I'm going to give you again 1-800-570-2021, or you can go to Kenn's website, Kenn, KENN, KOPF, forcongress.com. Guys, thanks for listening today. You have just been introduced to Kenn Kopf. I recommend you read his resume and tell me who you would hire out of those 9 candidates to work for you. Thanks for listening. We'll talk at you again next week.